So welcome to this next DIY video where we're going to be fitting a spur. We're going to take the wire from a socket in our bedroom, across and through the wall, into the port and then up into the new socket. That's going to be about a total of 1 meter in length. And what we're going to do first of all is to plan the track of the wires. Now I know that the wires come directly up into this socket. So I'm going to take our wire out, across the wall and then through the wall. But because the socket or spur that we're fitting is right next to the front door, there's every chance it's going to be used outside, say for vacuuming. So we're going to fit one of these.
An RCD plug helps to protect from cutting through a wire or water ingress whilst working outside. In this video we'll show you how to test the circuit is turned off, and we've made some simple to follow diagrams. We'll also show you how we cut out the back box and the channels for the wires, and finally we'll have the work tested by a qualified electrician.
Now before we get too far into the video, the only safe way to do electrics is really to pay a qualified electrician to come in and do it for you. If you do something yourself, you need to make sure you understand how to turn the electrics off, you need to make sure it's legal, and most importantly of all, you need to get it tested by a qualified electrician before you switch that switch back on. They will tell you the size of wire, they can check everything in the circuit and anything else they think needs to be checked to make sure it's all safe and signed off. What you can do though is to do some of the donkey work. You can cut the wall out, you can drill the hole through, and you can drill the hole for the back box, which is all going to save you money. So the next thing we're going to do after we plan the track of the wires is to put carpet protector down. Most of the drilling is going to be done on the other side of this brick wall, but this will save the carpet. So in the UK, the ideal height for a socket is between 450 and 1200 millimeters for accessibility. We're going to go just over 450 millimeters, so it's easy to use with things like the vacuum. So the easiest option would be to use one of these as a back box. You mount this on the wall and then run the wires up to it in conduit. But it's not that tidy. If you're fitting into plasterboard, you're going to use one of these. These lugs fit around the plasterboard. These are really easy to use, but this is a brick wall. So we're going to use a metal back box with these rubbers fitted in where the wires go through. We're going to have to chase the wall out, which is what we're going to do now. If you fit a metal front onto this back box needs earthing. So I'll show you how to do that.
We started by placing the back box reversed onto the wall and drawing around it. I normally try and drill the box out slightly bigger.
So place the drill onto the back box, making sure it goes slightly past the end, and then mark with some masking tape how deep you want to drill the hole. And put it nice and tight so it doesn't come undone. So for drilling into masonry, you really need an SDS drill, which is what this is. It has a special kind of chuck that when you push the drill bit into the chuck, it fixes it and it can't come out again. And it can't spin. It has quite a powerful hammer function, so it drills through brick easily. So whenever you're using a drill, obviously you need safety first. Don't forget a mask and goggles. I'll put a link in the description for this mask, which I really like because it's got a press to test function, so you know it's sealed properly. So before you do any work on electrics, you have to make sure the circuit is fully turned off. The easiest thing is to turn all the electrics off in the house, and the safest thing. If you can't do that though, use several different methods to make sure the circuit is turned off. The first thing is to plug something noisy in. So when you actually trip the circuit, you can hear it go off. So once you turn the circuit breaker off or pull the fuse out, the safest thing is to put the fuse onto one side. You can also put a note onto the circuit breaker saying the circuit is turned off and don't turn it back on. You should always use at least a couple of methods to make sure the circuit is off. So if the vacuum's gone off, you can also use one of these pens. If the circuit's live, it will make that noise. If the circuit's off, it will stop green.
Once you're sure the power has been turned off, you can also use a tester by touching the insulation on the live wire with a tester inside the socket.
So if you're going to use something like this, you need to make sure it's working first. So test on something you know is live, like this light. So the few points are really important when it comes to stripping the actual wire. The first one is when you pull the outer casing back, you make sure that the casing on the wire itself hasn't been cut. It has, you best to start again. The other thing is it's worth investing in a set of wire strippers. You can use a Stanley knife, but de-strip it really well, and you need to make sure that the inside copper has not been dinted at all. If it has, redo it. So the other thing that's really important is the wire goes into the back of the socket properly. One thing you don't want is a lot of conductor sitting at the back of the socket, because that's really dangerous. The other thing is you don't want the screw to clamp down onto this outer casing. You want the screw to make a firm pressure onto the copper inside. So if you're putting 3 wires into the same hole, I tend to put them in like that. You can get 3 in next door to each other, and then the screw can clamp down firmly onto all 3 wires. You want it to be firm enough so you can't pull the wire out, but obviously you don't want to crush the copper inside. Now if I'm just putting 1 wire in, as in a spur, it's the only time I bend a wire over. If I do that, I clamp the top part, bend the wire over, and then very gently squeeze them together. What you don't want to do is to damage either side of the copper wire. If you do, redo it. The reason for this is it allows the screw to screw down onto both sides of the copper wire, and you get a really firm fixing. Again, don't over tighten it, but it must be firmly held in the back of the socket. So the other thing I do, before I strip the wire, I put the wire into the back of the socket, put a small mark onto the back of the wire, and then strip the wire coming forward of that mark by a couple of millimeters. That means the screw should only screw down onto copper, and there shouldn't be any copper coming out the back of the socket. The other essential thing is earth sheathing. You can buy this in small rolls or large rolls, but you must make sure all your earths are properly sheathed.
Next we covered the wires with conduit to help protect them. Then we applied a weak solution of PVA to help seal the old plaster and filled the holes with bonding. We do have a separate video on this. And finally, we filled the holes, sanded to make good.
As mentioned earlier on in the video, we've finished fitting the spur, and before we go live and actually turn the power on, we're going to get it checked over, signed off, and just change anything the electrician's not happy with.